Evening, Mike. Evening, everybody.
Hi, Stuart. How are you?
Hey, Maggie.
Hi, Stuart,
Hi,
Maggie, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Evening, everybody.
All right.
We have an
Mr.
audio
Bell?
Commissioner Colville.
Hello. Yes.
Check works. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, it's Commissioner Rivlin. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Commissioner Rivlin. Yes.
Hi, good evening.
Looks like we're still waiting for Bookbinder and Scissor.
Hello, and just give me a moment. I'm just going to call in so that I'm not cutting in and out, but I'm here.
Hi, Adam.
Hello.
Engineers are the mute.
So, Madam Chair, I think we're waiting for Commissioner Zisser.
That's right.
Okay.
Mute Commissioner Rivlin. I don't know.
You have, oh, I think he's joining. Or is that
Everyone
Adam?
can hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you, Adam.
Cool.
Paul, did you hear anything from Commissioner Scissor?
I think he's logging on right now on the
Okay,
very
great.
bottom of my screen.
Okay.
How's that?
Yes.
Hi there.
Hi.
Perfect. Okay, looks like we have everybody. Paul, what do you think? Should we get started?
I say that would be a good idea. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All righty. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Maggie Ostrowski. I'm the chair of the Planning Commission. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning Commission for March 9th. This is the regular Planning Commission meeting, and it will be held via telecommunication, which is in compliance with the provisions of the Brown Act and Executive Order N-29-20 issued by the governor. Corinne, can we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Commissioners Bookbinder,
Present.
Colville,
Present.
Ray,
Here,
Rivlin.
Here.
Disser,
Here.
Vice Chair Ching,
Here.
Ostrowski.
Here.
Present.
Thank you, Corinne. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Great. Anybody have any corrections or modifications? All right. Do we have a motion for approval?
I'll move approval of our minutes of the last meeting, which was February 9th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Who was
Corinne,
that?
can we have a voice vote, please?
That's the second. I didn't see.
Zisser.
Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioners Bookbinder,
Aye.
Colville,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Rivlin,
Aye.
Disser,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ching,
Abstain.
and Chair
Absent.
Ostrowski.
Aye. Thank you, Corinne. In terms of communications, Director Cormoyan, do we have any communications for the commission or any agenda modifications or postponements tonight?
So there are no communications, Madam Chair. In terms of modifications, Stephen Rose will be presenting on item 2.
Thank you. All right, so this is the point in the meeting where any member of the public, may address the commission on an item that's not on the agenda. You may speak for up to 5 minutes, but the planning commission may not take any action tonight. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak? Opening the public hearing with my virtual gavel. No? Okay, then I will close the public hearing with my virtual gavel. And we will move on to the 4 agenda items for this evening. And before we start, commissioners, do we have any disclosures regarding items on the agenda?
Yes, I have a disclosure on item 4, that's the prune yard.
That's right.
I had a meeting with Dean Rubinson yesterday afternoon for him to review that item. And we talked for about an hour.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Zisser. Anybody else?
Yes.
Also, I'd like to, Stuart, do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Sure, Commissioner Portman. Similar to Commissioner Zisser, I had a conversation with Mr. Rubinson.
Okay, thank you very much.
I mentioned this at the SARC meeting, but I met with the applicant beforehand, before the SARC meeting. I mentioned this at the SARC meeting. And also, I am not within 500 feet of the property, but I am like 520 feet away from it. So I don't have to recuse myself, but I thought I would at least mention I'm pretty close to the property.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bookbinder. Commissioner Rivlin?
I also met with the applicant, Dean Rubenstein, and we discussed the project for 30 minutes. And I also have a relationship to the management company on site, but it's unrelated to the item. I spoke with the city attorney, and I am not in any conflict financially for the operation there.
Great, thank you. And I also spoke with Dean Rubinson on agenda item 4 yesterday for about 30 minutes. Great. Okay. Thank you for all of those disclosures. Our first topic for the evening is the public hearing to consider the application of Adu Readiness for a site and architectural review permit PLN-2020-160 to allow the construction of a new approximately 3,245 square foot one-story single-family residence with an approximately 495 square foot junior accessory dwelling unit on the property located at 1495 Teresa Avenue in the R18 single-family residence zoning district. And our planner for this item is Naz Puya.
Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. I will go ahead and share my screen with the PowerPoint.
And anybody who's here for agenda item number 3, please mute your microphone.
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
منم گفتم که ولی شنید من. Did you hear for number 3?
Yes, we just need you to mute your microphone. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So item 1, as mentioned, is an application for a site and architectural review permit for a new one-story home at 1495 Teresa Avenue. The project site is zoned R18 and located on Teresa Avenue right here, which is off of West Parr Avenue down here, and Winchester Boulevard is here to the right. In 2019, a previous site and architectural review permit was approved for a new home, but it was not fully exercised as a building permit was never obtained, just a demolition permit. So the previous home was removed and the site is currently vacant. So the current proposal, which is an entirely new application, it's for an approximately 3,245 square foot one-story home with an attached JADU, or junior accessory dwelling unit. And this results in a lot coverage of 35% and an FAR of 0.34. Hi there. Can you please mute yourself? We can hear you. Thank you. So the materials for the proposed new home would include stucco walls, composition roofing, and stone accents on the front facade, which would be similar to many of the homes throughout the Santa Moss neighborhood.
I'm sorry, you're unmuted again and we can hear you. Thank you.
If someone from IT could maybe mute anyone who's not speaking on this item. Thank you. So here we have this.
Hey, Naz, before you, okay, Akbar, you're muted now. Just leave the screen alone because then you tend to unmute yourself. Just leave it alone for the time being. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you,
we
Dr.
have the site plan here to, over here is the street. This is the proposed new home with the new garage. And then this is the location of the new junior ADU, which is attached to the side, and then access would also be from the side. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a site and architectural review permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naz. Do we have any questions for Naz?
I have one quick question, Naz, just for interest. I can't, because I can't remember how we did it, but in terms of the JADU, does that the square footage not get included in the FAR calculation? Or does it get included?
It is included in the FAR. So the 3,245 square feet, that does include the area of the JADU.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if we don't have any questions, would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, everyone, commissioners. My name is Aman Dule. I'm the designer for the project. Let me know if you have any questions on the design of it or any other questions. I'm here. I'm available.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions? Okay, well, with that, I'll close the public hearing. And who would like to start us off on this item?
I believe there was a SARC report about this, wasn't there?
That's correct.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Commissioner Ching, would you like to review the SARC report?
Yeah, well, it was. We felt it was a very nice design, consistent with the San Thomas area neighbourhood plan. We were very supportive of it, with the recommendation, I think, that the pavers be made permeable. And that was it, really.
Great, thank you.
The only thing I'd add is this looks like a lovely design. I appreciate the variety of materials being used, and I know I say this every time one of these comes before us, but I'm very happy to see that people are taking advantage of our ADU rules and are including an ADU in the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Brookbinder. Anybody else have comments or would like to make a motion?
I thought it was a good project. I think it meets all our parameters and really a nice design. And I will make a motion.
Great.
The Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving a site and architectural review permit to allow the construction of a new approximately 3,245 square foot, one-story single-family residence with an approximately 495 square foot accessory dwelling unit at 1495 Teresa Avenue.
I'll
Thank you,
second that.
Commissioner Craig. Oh, who is that?
That was me.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Bookbinder. Corinne, can we have a vote?
Can. Commissioners Bookbinder,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
oh, Bill, I forgot you as well.
Aye.
Commissioner Rivlin,
Aye.
Visser,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ching,
Aye.
and Chair Ostrowski.
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you, Corinne. The second item on the agenda today is the public hearing to consider the appeal PLN-2020-152 of the Community Development Director's denial of a tree removal permit, PLN-2020-147, to allow the removal of one oak tree on the property located at 337 Reading Road in the R16 low density residential zoning district. And our planner tonight is Stephen Rose.
There you go. Sorry about that. I had the presentation set, but not my video. So I'm going to reshare. 1 second. So, yeah, thank you again and good evening, Chair Ostrowski and members of the Planning Commission. As discussed, I'll be presenting item 2 on the agenda tonight, which is essentially to consider the appeal of a tree removal permit denial. The subject property is a vacant single-family flag lot located on the north side of Reading Road, west of South Bascom Avenue and east of Parsons Avenue. The applicant is requesting reconsideration of the director's decision to deny the removal of a 23-inch diameter coast live oak tree, which is located toward the front of the subject property over here on the left, which is effectively in conflict with the proposed porch, covered porch that they'd like to have in the area. Over here on the right, this is the proposed oak tree, subject tree for removal. So this particular tree was originally requested for removal on the basis that the preservation of the tree would require a minor reduction in the building area, and doing so would constitute a severe impact to the economic enjoyment of the property, not experienced by other property owners. To support the request, the applicant provided an arborist report which noted the subject tree to have a poor form and sun scalding, but otherwise noted to be in fair condition. In consideration of the request and inspection of the tree by the project planner, the community development director denied the tree removal permit, finding that the applicant's request did not satisfy the required finding. That particular finding is actually here now on screen. It's the economic enjoyment and hardship finding. There's actually a provision with, it's actually one of the hardest findings to actually make. And the reason being is within the body of the finding, it even goes on to say a minor reduction of the potential number of residential units or building size due to the tree location does not represent a severe limit on the economic enjoyment of the property. And again, this is the placement of the tree. The property is an R16 lot and could probably relocate the building to accommodate the proposed placement. The building could be wider, placed deeper back on the lot. This is by ways of example here, because it would be only 5 foot or 1/2 building wall height setback in both regards. With that said, once the community development director denied the tree removal permit request, the applicant had appealed the denial, essentially citing the same economic enjoyment and hardship finding, but now also citing that the tree removal may be satisfied on the basis that the tree is diseased and in danger of falling. So it's kind of like a new reason that was being added. And to support this conclusion, the applicant provided an additional letter from the same arborist company, changing the health rating of the tree from fair to poor, and indicating that this is because there's a dead channel of rotting wood was discovered in the core of the tree, as well as evidence of insects and fungal growth. And the updated letter also indicates that the tree should be removed because the tree is in a death spiral, and recognizing it may fail in a few more years just due to the weakened structure of the tree, and as well as the opportunistic insects. In consideration of these statements, it should be noted that staff has not had a third-party arborist at the site to independently verify these claims, and which is what our typical practice is. So if we get a tree removal permit, and to the layperson's perspective as staff planner, we go out to the site and we can't determine that we can't agree to these things, it's not readily apparent to us, we'll generally require a cash deposit for a third-party independent arborist to go out to the site to verify the claims that are being made, because we find that there is oftentimes a little bit of a conflict of interest when the arborist being hired is by the property owner. That said, and even in consideration of the new information, it would really be difficult to make the finding for removal of it being diseased or in danger of falling, because there's also an additional statement within that finding that the tree, its removal cannot be controlled or remedied through reasonable preservation or preventative procedures and practices. The arborist, the amended letter doesn't go into that level of detail, doesn't actually express, could you actually treat the tree? Could you actually remove the beetles? Could you actually remove the insects? Could you do anything to help take care of the damage to the tree or the structure of the form? And that's something that we typically ask for as well. And that's why our third party arborist reports actually take a look at these trees from a little bit of a different perspective. And with that said, and in conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution denying this appeal and upholding the director's denial of a tree removal permit. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thorough report. Do we have any questions for Stephen?
Was the applicant aware that hiring their own arborist would not, I guess, have any effect on staff's attitude towards any of this? It seems like a bit of trouble for them to go to.
It's for that very reason we actually request that applicants do not hire their own arborist up front. Our tree removal permit application actually says that on the cover of it, because we want to make sure that we are conducting our own independent analysis. So we do not recommend that applicants go to that expense.
Right, I understand the reasoning due to conflict of interest and so on. I was just making sure that the applicant had been appropriately informed of this, and it sounds like if they filled out the application to have the tree removed, then they would be aware of this.
Yeah, I mean, the application form is pretty clear to that regard, and the application form hasn't changed from when the original permit was submitted back in October.
Okay.
Planner Rose, in the packet, that arborist prepared a report that showed most of the trees on the site. And within that packet on tree number 4, Coast Live Oak, to be removed, which was noted by the applicant, there are multiple logs in front of that tree. So if you were to look at Google Earth as of January 2016, there was another large tree in the same location, actually to the north of that. Was that tree permitted to be removed?
I couldn't speak to that. I haven't done that level of analysis on this particular site.
Okay, and I wouldn't have raised that, but I did see those logs. So I'm just wondering, if you look the full backyard, I don't know at what time it was made a flag lot, but that full space was occupied by large trees as little as 5 years ago. So I was just curious, but we can ask the applicant when the public hearing opens.
Can we go back to your first, I think it's your first slide that has bullets on it? Kind of your summary slide at the beginning.
Yeah, give me a second, I'm loading it. This one here?
Yeah, Stephen. So, okay, so the fourth bullet, on the first bullet, that the fourth sub bullet, it says arborist report noted fair with sun skull damage and poor forms. But it's my understanding, this is the original report that you're talking about. It's my understanding that the city did not have an arborist go out and look at this. You made a judgment not to have an arborist review this tree. Is that so? Is that true?
This is not, go ahead, sorry.
So I'm just trying to confirm whether that's, whether there was an arborist report or not initially.
There had been. So this is the same report that Commissioner Rivlin had just mentioned a moment ago. So they had done more of a comprehensive analysis of all the trees in the property, and this was noted as tree number 4 in that particular report. It was not a city prepared arborist report. This was prepared again by the applicant at the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not talking about the report that the applicant did. It's in the materials. This reads as if the on the original application there was an arborist report, and whether that was a city arborist report or an applicant's arborist report.
Yes.
Versus the latest one that
let me clarify.
Yeah.
So effectively, when the permit originally came in back in October, I believe, of last year, the city had received with the tree removal permit application package an arborist report. Since receiving the appeal, we've received a letter which is effectively amending that arborist report, providing new information, additional findings. Now, while the arborist report did note that this particular tree number 4 was, was sun scald and had poor form, that wasn't really, we requested the applicant state which particular finding of under consideration is being requested. And this, again, on the original application, the applicant was citing a finding of economic enjoyment and hardship. So their basis for removal is that they felt as if this particular tree should be removed because it is causing this hardship onto their home, which is not experienced by their owners. It was only subsequent now on the appeal that they're providing additional information about the condition of the tree and changing the condition statement from fair to poor and elaborating that to indicate a little bit more information as to the condition of the tree.
Yeah, Commissioners, I think, what Stephen says is absolutely correct. What we were trying to capture in this slide is, the applicant still believes, based on this arborist report, after they heard we would not support it, they hired the arborist, is still technically part of the tree removal permit application.
Yeah, I guess in general, my concern is how you decide how the city decides. And I get what you're saying, and I understand that, but I guess my concern is the question of when the city decides when to or when not to get an arborist report.
Oh, I can answer that. Yeah. So usually someone submits a tree removal permit application and the request is to remove the tree because it's causing structural damage to a house. We have our inspector go to the property. They look at the tree in relation to the house. They look at the alleged damage. They take photographs. If it's causing damage to the foundation, we would recommend removal. Okay, that's pretty simple, right? All right, so here's another request. I want to remove the tree because it's diseased and danger of falling. So we go out there and we look at the tree and it looks pretty good to me. I'm not an arborist. Therefore, at that point, we say, well, in order for us to make the findings, we really need to get a professional here to review this and hopefully reach the conclusions that you've reached, because right now we can't see that. What tends to happen is that a property owner will hire a tree guy, and the tree guy happens to be an arborist, and they say, yeah, remove the tree, it's going to die. And it's not really a thorough analysis that the tree is being undermined because of drought. If you water it and add nutrients, the likelihood of its survival is 85%. See, those are the thorough arborist reports that we would like to see. And those are the ones that your staff would commission to make certain that the analysis reflects real life situations and it's independent. It's not hired by the applicant.
Right.
So this has been pretty standard for the city of Campbell, that we on the application staff has placed conspicuously, do not hire an arborist, we will do that for you. Now we offer that to the applicant. In this case, if you want to prove this case, you need to submit a deposit for $1,000 and we'll hire an arborist to analyze this.
Okay.
So
And
they
you
always
have
have that
offered that?
option. I believe that was offered. The project planner's not here. If the applicant wants to pursue that now, we can certainly do that.
Okay, that was my
I don't
next,
think they do,
that was my
because it's
next.
cheaper to appeal a tree permit. It's $200. So
Yeah. All right. You asked my last you answered my last question about doing it now at this point. So they could still take their chances with a city arborist if they put down $1,000.
that's
Okay,
correct. That's
thank
correct.
you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Moran. Other questions, Commissioner Bookbinder?
So just to make sure I have a clear view of what's going on here. So what we understand is it would be inconvenient for the applicant to build around the tree. And the tree has some signs of sickness according to their arborist. And neither of these are sufficient reason to remove the tree or to overturn the denial of the tree removal application. We don't know if the tree, we do not know if the tree can be preserved or saved, or if it's, on its way out and really does need to be removed. And we would need the city to appoint an arborist to find that out one way or the other. But basically, what you're saying, what staff is telling us is that the applicant just hasn't given us, has not established reason to overturn the no, you can't move this tree.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, let me ask one quick question too, because I'm getting a little confused. Paul or Stephen, for the applicant to get to the stage where they agree to hire a third-party arborist to look at this, does the planning commission have to say it's okay to do that, or they can just do that on their own?
I can respond to that, Paul. I mean, the applicant is kind of availed potentially two options right now by the planning commission. If the planning commission takes a staff recommendation as provided and we deny this particular permit, the appeal request, they could, it's not a denial with prejudice. They could apply again with a new tree removal permit application, providing the additional findings and information that they have already concluded from their arborist report, but also providing a deposit for the city to, contract with our own arborist to independently review the request and come to our own conclusions and review that request under the merits of that additional information. The original application, just as a reminder, was denied on the basis of economic enjoyment and hardship. The applicant was effectively saying, absent the condition of the tree, we don't like the placement of it. And that was the reason why they were requesting removal. We're now looking at new findings, new information, and we would be approaching that from an entirely different perspective, hiring a third-party arborist to conduct that level of analysis, which we would want in order to render such a conclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
Hi, I'm Marco. I'm the applicant, and so yeah, initially the first application was for economic hardship. I'm inexperienced, and this is my first time, requesting a tree removal. So the reason I did economic was because the tree was in the initial report designated fair, and I looked at it and I said, well, because it's a fair tree, I guess I can't say that it needs to be removed because it's falling. So that's why I did that. I added that it's it was a 2 out of 5 and did have damage, and just visually, it doesn't look like a tree that I would want to save. If it were a tree that looked healthy, I would gladly build around it because would be in my front yard and would look nice. But after the denial, I just wanted to reinvestigate all aspects of it. I called the same guy back. I didn't push him in any way. I said, please come take a second look. The tree really doesn't look well. And, if you really do think that it is in danger, because it does look in danger to me. You know, it really doesn't look like a tree that's going to live much longer. For me to build a house, you know, for me to modify my plans around this house, it doesn't look like the tree is going to live much longer. So, you know, that's why I said, could you take a second look? And that's why I changed when I appealed, I changed the grounds for removal. And yeah, I would be willing to hire a third-party arborist to look. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was an option. I had missed that. If that's in the instructions, I guess I should have read it better.
Thank you. And can you comment on Commissioner Rivlin's question about the logs in that photo?
Yeah, the logs are from a different tree that I actually had, and then also there is a walnut tree that we cut down. So I think some of it's the walnut tree, and then some of it is another tree from a different property. I can't really remember.
Okay, thank you. Do we have other questions for the applicant?
I guess elaborating on that, could you share the other tree was removed, and when did you acquire this property? Was it recently, or was it as far back as when there were other trees on the site?
I don't remember the exact year I acquired the property. It's been quite a few years. I did have somebody come and clear the lot of any, you know, garbage trees that were there, but that was a while ago.
Okay.
I have a question. Irregardless of the condition of the tree, are you? I believe the city had recommended some slight modifications to be able to build the second parcel, leaving with the tree still there. Are you opposed to that design, or would that design be acceptable to you?
I'm sorry, were you saying the proposed design to keep the tree?
Yes. I believe the city made some recommendations to kind of build around it, or readjust the design of the new house to accommodate the tree. Do you have an opposition to that?
That's the plan B. And if the tree did seem like it were going to live longer, I would actually prefer that design. That was something that when I first looked at the property, I had considered, because I saw that tree was there, and I thought that, you know, I may need to build around it. It's just that the tree doesn't look healthy.
Okay.
And I don't think it'll last very long. So.
I have a question just to confirm for the applicant. Can you confirm for me, are you the owner of both lots, just the flag lot in the back or the front lot?
I'm the owner of both lots.
Okay, so you own both lots and you bought them at the same time. Did you split the parcel yourself, or did you buy them separately?
I split the parcel myself.
Got it. And I'm just trying to figure out, based on the map itself, and what we have here just in our packet for the Planning Commission, that's been publicly available. We have a top-down view that looks like it was taken from a Google Maps, and it has a, you know, kind of a yellow outline of the flag lot in the back, and it shows that tree being, I mean, spot on that lot line. But when I look further down at the other pictures, including some more top-down pictures that have the proposed building that you have for the structure in the back, you know, it shows that tree way deeper into the second parcel in the back, not nearly as close to that lot line as it appears to be in the other top town. So my question is, how close is that tree to the lot line between the two lots?
I don't have an exact measurement. I'm gonna estimate maybe 15 feet.
Okay, got it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. And with that, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the commission for discussion. Who would like to start?
I'd like to throw in here, like, my view of this here is that, you know, we have somewhat odd rules for trees in the city, but we have them for a reason, and they're pretty straightforward. But I still feel like something went wrong here. I don't know if it's that staff should have been more hands-on or what, but the applicant spending time on a blind alley here is a bad outcome. The applicant has done this once. Staff has done this hundreds of times. I hear staff when they say, you know, we put it on the front page of the appeal form that you should not hire your own arborist, but like clearly something did not work out here, and this is like I feel bad for the applicant in that they've put time and money in apparent good faith in something that turned out to not move things along. It does sound like they really want to work with staff. However, whether they wind up building their home around the tree, if the tree is healthy or not, I think the way we're probably going to go, the way I would prefer this goes, is that we deny the appeal and that they go back to staff and get a third-party arborist report, which gives an authoritative view on whether or not the tree can be salvaged. It is disappointing and a little sad that we wound up here. I'm not sure it's any, like, I'm not throwing blame at anyone in particular, just I wish it had not come down this way.
Thank you, Commissioner Bookbinder.
I would, I kind of echo that. I do feel bad for the applicant spending the money, but I also do think it makes sense, you know, in terms of fairness, you know, for everyone, that there is a third-party arborist in these kind of things. So I would agree with the spirit of Mr. Bookbinder's, Commissioner Bookbinder's suggestion that we deny it, and then the applicant can pursue it with it and perhaps get a third-party arborist to really come to grips with the question, because I think on the other issue, I think the staff's right on, and, you know, it just doesn't, I would have to uphold the appeal. And I would also say in response to the applicant that, you know, I did go out, I looked at the tree just from Reading, which is a ways away. And I agree, it definitely is not the most robust tree that we have in the city. It looked a little scraggly to me, but I think the point of the staff's report is that with better care, proper care, it can actually look nicer. So I think that's the spirit of the staff report too. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray.
Having, may I go, Chair Ostrowski?
Yes.
Having evaluated attachment 2 from the city's GIS service and current Google Earth, it's evident other trees were removed, but I do agree with my cohorts here that this should be denied until we have a proper assessment from an arborist and further review of what was on site, if feasible.
Yes, I agree with that as well. Does anyone else have an opposing view, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to chime in, and I'd like to direct this to staff, because I agree with the sentiment that Reverend just made regarding having to deny the appeal. The applicant so generously and willingly accepted going down that path, regardless of whose fault it is. Obviously, it was on the application. So hopefully, to Commissioner Bookbinder's point, we don't run into this too often. But the comment / concern I have directed towards staff, and maybe Stephen Rose or Director Kamoyan, you can help me out. My question earlier to the applicant regarding the position of the tree, I'm truly looking for clarification on what's going on with that, because when I look at the packet here on page 1 for item number 2, which is what we're on here, we have that top-down view, which has the red circle around apparently one single tree. As you move down, you see pictures of a single tree, supposedly the one in question, I would imagine. And this is what Commissioner Rivlin pointed to with the logs as well. Now, when you go down to the next page right past that, and you have the proposed development, you have the red circle around the tree that I imagine is in question. But below on the lot line is a circle that is the outline of a 10-inch black walnut tree. This could have been the one that the applicant alluded to having cut down already. But that one looks smack on the lot line, which would make sense. That'd be what I'd be seeing from the top-down view on those pictures. But every time I look on Google Earth and the picture provided on the first page, there's only one single tree I see in that image. Is there a discrepancy that I'm just not, I'm not making sense of this, and maybe other people are? Can the director help me out, please?
Yeah, I can respond to it if I may. In terms of the exhibit, which is on the first cover sheet, I think that the tree has a slight lean to it. And so what you're seeing is a blending of canopies between this particular tree and the trees further to the south. It's very deceptive in the way that aerials are taken at an angle and the way that a tree will represent itself on a property. It's particularly exacerbated by that particular image you're seeing on the cover sheet of the staff report at the first page, because it really seems to emphasize its placement towards that property line. But as far as the site plan goes, which was presumably prepared by an architect or someone else, draftsman, that tree is indicated as about 20 feet into the property. So you do have a blending of canopies, but the actual trunk, the support of the tree is probably a little bit deeper into the property, probably closer to what the applicant indicated, about 15 feet in. Somewhere in that range.
And Mr. Rose, can you confirm, because you're right, it could be the blending of canopies, but then when you scroll down to page 2, you see a picture. I would imagine this is the tree in question, but that picture looks like one single tree. There doesn't appear to be any other tree that could have a blended canopy with it. So unless that's those two following pictures on page 2 and on page 2 are not of the tree in question, I mean, those two pictures clearly show that there is one single tree. There is no other tree for which the canopies can be blended on. So
let me try to answer this, Stephen. So I think the project planner who's not here tonight, Commissioner Colville, plotted the yellow line and may have done that incorrectly. That is a possibility. I did look at the distance that you have identified on page 3 of 3. It's actually it's not 15 feet. It's actually about 22 or 23 feet in from the property line, and then I'm trying to take 23 feet and apply it to the aerial on page 1, and it could be within that detached structure if that's truly the back property line. But I think moving forward, if the decision is to deny the appeal and uphold the director's denial, then we'll make certain that this is all vetted out with their new submittal of a tree removal permit, that it's properly placed on the property and we know what its relationship is to the property line. I'm a little concerned about the trees in the back corner that don't seem to be on the property today. So the site was definitely cleared, and that is concerning. I probably want to investigate that a little further.
And I appreciate the feedback. I was not trying to hold this up. I think we're all going in the route we discussed, but definitely looking forward to some further discussion and investigation. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and just quickly jump in, I would support a denial on this. I'd like to see a thorough investigation on the history of the trees there and the placement. And just for the record, I probably have a different view to Commissioner Bookbinder on the process and the staff treatment here. I think it's actually reasonably, if not very clear, that you need an independent arborist, and having been through this process prior to being a planning commissioner, just from personal experience, I found them very helpful. And I didn't personally have any doubt on the process. So something may have happened differently here, but I'd just like to get that in the record.
Well,
Thank you, Vice Chair.
With that being said, I'd just like to adopt a resolution denying appeal PLN 2020-152, upholding Community Development Director's denial of tree removal permit PLN 2020-147 for the removal of one oak tree on the subject property.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Corinne. Can we have a roll call, please?
Just a second. I need to know who the second person
Oh,
was.
Commissioner
Yes,
Craig?
sir. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Cray.
I can't see all of you, so I have to see who's talking. Okay, so I'll do my roll call here. Commissioners Bookbinder,
Aye.
Colville,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Strickland,
Aye.
Nisser,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ching,
Aye.
Chair Ostrowski.
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you. That item passes. Okay, moving on to our agenda item number 3 this evening. This is the public hearing to consider the application PLN 2018-225 of planned development permit to allow the construction of 9 single-family residences, a new private street, an associated site and landscaping improvements, a tenant subdivision map to subdivide the site into 9 single-family lots with 1 common lot, a parking modification permit to allow a reduction in the number of required parking stalls, a tree removal permit to allow the removal of 1 fruitless mulberry tree, and a variance to allow the retention of existing overhead utility lines and or the placement of new poles for property located at 202 West Rincon Avenue in the proposed planned development zoning district. And our planner tonight is Stephen Rose.
Thank you again. And members of the Planning Commission, as just captured, this is for a 9-unit subdivision, 202 West Rincon Avenue. The particular project site is a half-acre net lot size lot on the south side of Rincon Avenue, west of Winchester Boulevard and east of San Tomas Expressway. The property is zoned PD or planned development and has a medium density residential general plan land use designation. The property is surrounded by residential uses on all sides and currently developed with a single family residence and several smaller buildings which would be demolished as part of the project. The applicant's request is for a planned development permit to allow the construction of 9 single family residences, a tentative subdivision map to subdivide the property into 9 single family lots and 1 common lot, a parking modification permit to allow for reduction in the number of required parking spaces, a tree removal permit to allow for the removal of 1 20-inch fruitless mulberry tree, and a variance to allow the retention of existing overhead lines and or the placement of new poles on the property and associated with the project rather. So in terms of background and just really recognizing this project has a really rich history to it, I want to provide a quick overview of the highlights. The project essentially had its start in 2006 when the city considered a proposal for an 8-unit subdivision under different ownership at the time. In response to the proposal, several neighbors opposed the project, stating concerns with privacy, shadowing, sunlight, massing, and parking. Since that time, the property was sold to the current owner, who, upon acquiring the property, applied for a pre-application to reduce the density of the project to support just 5 units instead of 9, which was subsequently denied. In August of 2019, the city held a meeting with the city site and architecture review committee meeting at which the commissioner in attendance had expressed concerns with the floor area ratio and massing the project. And subsequently to that, in November of 2019, the city held an in-progress meeting with the Planning Commission, which really indicated tentative support of the floor area ratio that was being requested. It was 87% at the time, as well as a request for a parking modification permit, which had a 5-stall deficiency compared to just the 1, which is proposed tonight. So in terms of the overall site layout and design, it's designed such that a single driveway from Rincon Avenue here on the left would serve all 9 units. The home abutting West Rincon Avenue over here on the left has been oriented towards the street and simulated with a similar setback as the adjoining development to the west. So that has a 15-foot setback. This is going to be 14.5 and maybe a little bit tighter. Guest parking is dispersed throughout the site. So you have some parking spaces occurring between, say, unit 3 and 4 here. You have a big kind of a centrally located bank here, but also guest parking towards the between 7 and 8 and towards the back of the site as well. And the applicant has proposed a 2-story unit for unit 9. So the rest of these 1 through 8 are all 3 stories in height, and unit 9 is going to be 2 stories. And the kind of the intention behind that is to be sensitive to the adjoining single family uses, which are to the south. In regard to the overall style and design of the buildings, they use very traditional styles and forms which are found throughout the area. Again, these northerly 8 units would be 3-story and otherwise nearly identical in appearance, with just minor changes to the garage door framing and the entry doors. To provide visual interest throughout the project, what the applicant has proposed to do is kind of alternate the colors and materials of the siding. So you have this combination of stucco, and then the next unit will be, say, stucco and lapboard siding. And you're really mixing up this color palette, all using complementary colors and varying shingle and roofing styles. So you're going from comp shingle to tile, and then comp shingle to tile, and throughout. So it's really the application of materials is really what's going to provide the visual interest for the project. Now, while recognizing there are some constraints imposed by the site design, staff worked with the applicant to improve the appearance of the units and attempt to diminish the prominence of the 3rd floor in particular. The exhibit here on the screen shows the before and after result of some of that work, and it's really a credit to the applicant for their willingness to work with staff and try to improve the unit design. Just to kind of point out a couple of things which we look for. I mean, you have this kind of 3-story unarticulated wall over here on the right side of this before exhibit. You have this second and third story, which is stacked and asymmetrical to the ground level. These items are resolved in the new design. So you have this kind of continuous 2nd floor roof line, which extends throughout the building. And it's meant to help diminish the 3-story appearance of the unit as a result. So in terms of privacy and just really the adjacency of this project to other units, the 8 3-story units will be approximately 28 feet away from the uses to the east, which would be separated by a row of trees as well as a driveway. So that's this area here. And then on the other side, there happens to be an off-site driveway, and between the development, you have about 31 feet between these 2 projects. And again, as previously mentioned, a 2-story home has been proposed along the rear property line with no real southward facing windows other than a small window which is serves as staircase, which I'll cover here in a minute. With that said, what I'm circling here lower on the screen, these are kind of points which are picked up by the City Site and Architecture Review Committee. And while we will probably have a report by Sark, and I want to take away too much of their thunder, you have these vantage points from units 2 and 8 in particular, which have direct views onto adjoining balconies of these offsite units. And as a result, the Site and Architecture Review Committee had recommended that on these particular unit backyards, where all the other units only have 1 tree in their backyard, that a second tree be provided to help try to balance the privacy impact of that proposal. And just by the by, on the rearmost window, that staircase window, which I had mentioned earlier, they proposed frosted glass to resolve a privacy concern in that area as well. The applicant's request, as previously stated, would also result in the removal of 1 20-inch diameter fruitless mulberry tree, which is not a protected species, but it does conflict with the proposed improvements. That's this particular tree shown here in red. Project-wide, the applicant intends to plant 13 new trees, including 2 36-inch box flowering plum trees at the project front, and all these trees along the back and side, as previously mentioned, as well as the 2 new trees. And I think this particular exhibit might be a little bit out of date, but I believe there's a couple additional trees proposed along the south property line as well. The applicant's request for parking modification would allow for a deficit of 1 parking space, as previously stated, and for 3.5 parking spaces of the 3.5 of the required parking spaces to be provided as covered parking spaces instead of uncovered parking. So that really means our code has a provision there to provide additional covered parking. In this particular regard, there's all those uncovered guest parking spaces you saw that were kind of reasonably dispersed throughout the project. The code would otherwise call for some of those to be under like a covered carport structure, which is not being proposed. But from a numeric standpoint, we're only down one. Included in the project plans, this is kind of a unique thing, so I thought it was worthwhile to mention it. So with our new accessory dwelling unit ordinance, there's a requirement that residential subdivisions with 5 or more units, 5 or more developable parcels, I should say, provide at least 20%. 20% of those lots need to demonstrate ADU readiness, effectively showing how an accessory dwelling unit could be provided within the floor plan of that unit, within the living area, so not within the garage. So within the project, they do demonstrate how Unit 5 and Unit 6 could provide that accessory dwelling unit by making some minor adjustments to the floor plan. And while it's not, I don't believe it's the applicant's intent to do this, it's just a requirement that they are compliant with. So the applicant's request also involves a variance, and this particular variance is for overhead utilities. And recognizing that the existing service poles are unable to support the required undergrounding. Effectively, both of the 2 existing service poles have transformers on them, which preclude you from running a riser down the pole. The applicant has considered a variety of options on how to address the city's undergrounding requirements. So the 3 examples which are illustrated here on the screen go from option 1 on the far left. I'm just making sure, to option 3, which is indicated here on the far right. So the conditions of approval of the project would effectively require the applicant to pursue the first option before, and make sure that is exhausted before they move on to a less preferred option. But the conditions of approval do provide flexibility of the applicant to do any one of these options if from an engineering perspective it's ruled out. So the most preferred option, the option which they would be required to do unless it's determined to be technically infeasible for whatever reason, would be to remove effectively the pole, which is kind of close to the front of their property here in the middle. And they'd be placing 2 new poles on either end of the project, kind of even offsite of the project as well. So these poles would be in front of other properties and undergrounding the service line between these. So you actually get a result, you do have a net increase of 1 pole, but you do result in the removal of all overhead line. This is supported by staff in our SARC report because this is most closely in line with our undergrounding ordinances. Again, the intent is to try to get rid of these overhead lines. Really, with that said, and in consideration of the totality of this applicant's proposal, staff has recommended that the Planning Commission approve the applicant's request. And this concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Rose. That's a great overview. Do we have questions for Planner Rose?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead first. I got a sort of tangent-y one. Go ahead.
Well, I actually have a number of questions. The 5 units was denied. I'm curious as to why 5 units was denied earlier. I'm also wondering about the front-facing requirement. You know, we did a thing on Union Avenue not recently, and the front-facing requirement for was discussed, and I'm wondering if this applies to this as well, and whether or not that is taken into consideration. I also noticed that there was an issue about the trash, and that if instead of having individual trash bins, which seems like a lot of trash bins on the street, there was a recommendation, I believe, for a place to put one big trash bin, which would take up 2 parking spaces. And And then the only other thing was, you know, the fire is really, the FAR is really high, and I'm making the assumption that that's not unusual since you're approving it, but 89%, you know, I don't know where you draw the line on that. So those are my questions.
And I can tackle each one in kind. I didn't want to go too much into the SARC discussion. I don't know if we wanted to do a SARC report in that format, or I can go ahead and cover the points which are raised in the SARC meeting. But really just tackling the first question that you raised, which is about why was the 5 units denied? So that was really to kind of provide a little bit more history on that. It was a pre-application by the applicant to actually amend the general plan land use designation to a lower category. So right now it's medium density residential, which requires 14 to 20 units per gross acre. It just so happens to be that the minimum number of units that this particular site could propose is 9 within that density range. So because the applicant wanted to have 5, the only way to allow a lesser number of units on the site was to amend the general plan land use designation. So they had taken a proposal forward to the city council as a pre-application requesting authorization of a general plan amendment, and you know, we're all in a housing crisis, and that was recognized, I believe, as part of the meeting by the council, and they had denied the request to reduce the density of the project as a result. In terms of the front facing, I'm not sure if I totally followed your question, but there is a basic, we have design guidelines which apply to low to medium density developments. It's a general development practice which we try to orient the unit towards the public facing street so that buildings aren't walled off from the street. You're not looking at a side of a building or the rear of a building. And that's actually what this particular project has done. It's oriented that front porch onto the side.
Okay.
So you do have that front door facing Rincon Avenue. So that's actually, I was trying to mention that as a successful element, I suppose.
All right.
In touching on the trash point, now that was something that we discussed at the Site and Architectural Review Committee meeting. Yeah, there was a discussion point raised by, I believe, a member of the public that you will have a number of trash bins on the street, and you know, you could be looking at as many as 2 per unit, maybe 3 on a if you have landscaping that particular week or that particular month. I mean, these units don't have particularly large backyards, so they're not anticipated to generate a lot of green waste on any given week. I know my particular unit, I probably bring out the green bin maybe once every couple months. But yeah, I mean, that was a discussion point. Should a single larger consolidated trash enclosure be proposed instead with on-site pickup? And the discussion point which we raised was we do have a kind of a pickup cycle that where you'd be bringing these bins out to the street once a week, or you could potentially be losing 2 on-site parking spaces, guest parking spaces, which could result in the 7 days a week, 2 guest parking spaces being parked on the public on the public street. So that question might be, what is a greater impact? I mean, having those bins 1 day a week, or potentially having guest parking spaces 7 days a week. You know, I mean, that's kind of a trade-off. So that, I mean, the applicant did provide an alternative site plan indicating a design of where that trash enclosure would go in the center of the project, but had also raised other concerns with that approach, like you can have illegal dumping. It's kind of a burden on an HOA to have people, you know, you could have pests or vermin, there's noise, odor issues with that type of thing. You have multiple users dumping and dragging, pretty much bringing their trash waste from, say, unit 1 or unit 9 all the way to the center of the project, and they could be littering along the way. So there's those kinds of externalities which are taken into account as well. So the report as it's currently drafted and the project plans do not reflect the inclusion of that trash enclosure, but the actual individual pickup bins. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Thanks, Stephen. And yeah, I should have asked for a SARC report. Do we have a SARC report and other topics that were discussed beyond the trash?
Yeah, hi, Chair Ostrowski. Yeah, those are about 5 points on there. A couple Stephen has addressed already, a couple around privacy, where the request was put a couple more trees in there, which have been added, the frosted glass. I think there was a request about, you know, could we have an economic study on detached versus non-detached? and the applicants declined it. I type understand that, right? Because there's been a lot of study on this and a lot of meetings. So I think that's probably been studied to death in some respects. So I can understand why they were reticent to do that. There was an issue. We raised a thing about a place for locating bicycles, some secure storage. And I see that they're proposing to put some hooks in the garage because of security. And then probably the main one was there was a neighbour who raised his thing about all the bins going out into the street and that being an issue because it is a very busy street and quite a narrow street. So I think Stephen sort of summarised it well. Which is the lesser of the two evils: a centralised pickup area or putting the bins out in the street? And I don't know if there's actually room in the street with the other neighbours there. I guess there is, but that could be a problem. So it was a good issue when it was raised by. It was a valid issue to be raised by one of the neighbours. But apart from that, we were very supportive of it, and it has gone through a whole bunch of reviews before. So I think the majority of the key issues have been addressed successfully.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Other questions?
I just on the trash thing, it's just I know this has been gone over before in the SARC review and everything, but I'm just imagining, there's 9 units, so there's a minimum of 9 trash bins. Could be 18, could be even more than 8, probably not more than 18, but lining up somewhere between 9 and 18 units once a week on that's going to take up 2 or 3 street, maybe more street parking locations for the day. So and versus having a big bin in the back. It's just I don't know which is the lesser of two evils, but all those bins located on the off the curb on the street for a day that's a lot of bins. So
thanks, Commissioner Zisser. Do you have a question for Stephen?
Yeah,
Otherwise, we're gonna
I guess I don't have a
discussion
question.
afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Stephen?
I have a broader question for staff. Just in general, for developments like this, it really seems like any multifamily development just nearly always requires PD zoning. Like if you look at our zoning map, it has got a huge amount of light blue on it, which is the color used to represent PD zoning. And I was told that it's because you can't have a private road or a driveway without requiring a rezoning. Is this the same in other cities? Like, it seems like we use this a lot. Is this peculiar to Campbell?
I can tackle that. It's unique to Campbell insofar that the PD zoning district is the only zone district which supports small lot single family development, like the units that you're seeing now. That's for a combination of reasons, but the private road being one. And the second being the PD is used for any type of mixed use development. We don't have individualized mixed use zoning designation. So the PD is kind of a catch-all zone district in that regard. You do see it applied in other instances as well. The reasons for which are varied is the best I could describe it. And it's something that we are going to be probably looking at as part of our objective standards update. I will mention from a large, bigger scale perspective. But your comments well taken.
Thank you. The other question is, I see they're using 9 units. Do we have inclusionary zoning requirements, or is it just if they want to use a density bonus, they can use a density bonus?
We do have an inclusionary ordinance, but it only goes into effect when you have 10 or more units. So this particular project being at 9 is under the threshold. If they had proposed a density bonus project, they would have needed to provide affordable housing through that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we open the public hearing?
We have
For the applicant.
one quick one for Stephen.
Yes.
Just real quick here, Stephen, and I saw it on one of your slides and I can't find it in the packet now, but in terms of the side setbacks, I saw there were some 9 feet, but I thought some were also 5 feet between buildings. Is that true? And is that okay? I think it was your second slide you showed.
Yeah, I can actually reference the page in the packet for everyone's benefit. I mean, or I could, it's page 132 in the packet, I believe, is probably the exhibit you're looking for. I mean, you have some setbacks which are as close as 9 feet, which is really measured to the, like, I believe it's a second story element. But the primary building wall on the ground floor is 11 for the majority of the first 8 units. And the southerly most unit, the unit 9, is at 10 feet. So it's a little bit of, it's as close as setback on the ground level. So you're kind of varying. And again, I guess I'm measuring only on the west elevation of these buildings, which face an offsite, which are adjacent to an offsite driveway. So the cumulative distance between these buildings and the next building over is even greater. But you're looking at between, say, 10 and 9 and 10 on average. And as far as is that allowed, the planned development zoning district doesn't really have a prescribed set of development standards, say, like setbacks. So we do try to abide by the comparable zoning district standards. And I believe those are summarized on the maybe the first 2 pages of the staff report. This is pretty typical. And we do provide that, yes. And we also have a summary as well, actually on page 2 of the staff report. Actually, that's actually a good summary of the setbacks.
And in addition to that, though, Stevens, a couple of the buildings themselves are 5 feet from one another, and that's fine, I guess. That's standard.
So you're asking the interior setbacks between units on the site. So I'm sorry, my focus is more on the offsite impacts. Yeah, I mean, you can have buildings this close. I mean, you can even have attached projects units on a project, right? I mean, in this particular case, 5 foot separation does start to present concerns for other agencies like the fire department and building department, because certain fire rated requirements trigger. You have to generally have fire rated eaves, and your windows need to be tempered or non-existent or non-operable on those sides. But you can absolutely propose buildings that close together.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll open up the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak? We can't hear you because you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for that. I said not at this time unless you have any question.
I'm sorry?
I said not, I don't want to talk unless you have any question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any questions?
Do you have a particular preference for providing individual trash pickup versus a common trash area?
Are you asking me?
Yes, as the applicant.
Well, as Steven said, to put a bin is only, maybe I check with the neighbors, only a half a day bin in the outside, and the 2 bin for each home, the width total is less than 5 feet. For 9 homes comes about 45 feet, except the driveway we have 60 feet. But if you want it for half a day, we're gonna lose 2 good parking, there's parking inside, because the trash enclosure gets room. And then we have problem with the animal gonna find over there, it smell bad, it's not good for health over there, noise at the time of the pickup and drop. And also, as Steven said, somebody use it to bring trash over there. So we'll get a lot of problem just only for half a day. So I believe trash enclosure maybe is not a good idea. And also another one, because you asked about ADU. As Steven said, I would like to do that, because obviously the buyers, they don't have any contract to do that. If I get a loan from you, I would like to do it myself. It's easier for the buyer. Thank you.
Thank you. You said that you would like to add the ADU to the
Is-
units?
On unit 5 and 6, we already have a plan. So Steven said, I don't attend to do that, but I do.
Oh, you
I
do
can
plan,
do-
okay.
Yeah, I
Well.
do. It's easier because buyers normally they don't have any contract, so they're going back to me again. So it's easier to do it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think ADU ready probably means you need to have all the plumbing and electrical there. So it's a smaller increment to just add the appliances and cabinetry, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very good to know, and nice that you will be adding those 2 units for the future owners.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I will close the public hearing now, and we will start our discussion on this project. Who would like to start?
I'd like to start by knowing that, like, I would be comfortable with either configuration for the trash removal. I can see the arguments for either way. And I think it should carry some weight that the applicant would prefer individual bins on the street. But at the same time, I can see that being, like, we're concerned about people littering as they carry their trash to the dumpster. We'd probably be concerned about people littering as they carry their trash to the street. It's not that huge a difference. But I appreciate that we're being flexible on parking and FAR here. One of the things that really struck me is that in reference to something that Commissioner Zisser said, our FAR requirements are indeed all over the map, and they make it pretty much impossible to do development at general plan compliant densities. For example, there are places where our densities are supposed to be about 27 units per acre, but the FAR is supposed to be 0.55, which with parking requirements means that you get about 400 square feet per unit, which is pretty small for a house. This is part of why this is one of the things we're talking about this year. But as to the development itself, I appreciate that the developer has gone through a lot of, like the first time it was smaller than it is now, or fewer units than it is now, and it was turned down for being too many, and then they brought it back and it was sent back for being too few. And I can understand this being a lot of go around. We really appreciate their patience here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would like to also add to that. It's been quite a lot of discussion on this topic and a lot of input. And I also agree that, you know, with the plan development, there is flexibility in FAR. And I think that the applicant's done a really great job of working within some pretty tight and multifaceted constraints in terms of having to build at least 9 units and having to accommodate parking. I know that the applicant preferred to build detached units based on his experience with that rather than attached units. And so I think the homes all look very nice. And I do think that, you know, for the community and for the future owners, I think they'll appreciate having that detached configuration. And so I definitely support the project. I'm fine with whether we want to include, you know, individual trash containers seem better to me because of the issues that the applicant raised, you know, dumping, vermin, smell, all of that. And I think that individual trash enclosures are more aligned with a single family detached residence than a larger common container. So that's what I would support. And I thank the applicant for bringing such a nice project forward after all of this.
Thank you.
I agree on the trash. Could I ask a clarifying question to staff or even fellow commissioners? Why can a trash truck not drive down that, or it can, and that's what we're debating?
Sounds like one of those questions for staff. I mean, a trash truck can drive down here because, I mean, it's large enough for a fire truck. It's a
Right.
question of whether or not the trash company will serve the property by going on site. We do reach out to the trash companies and ask, will you serve the site? They are increasingly trying to manage their pickup on primary roads as opposed to private streets like this.
So I'll weigh in with a little data point. I live in a townhome community in Campbell, obviously, and the trash truck makes an effort to back up very loudly, but back up at 7 a.m. All the way down my alley, pick up everyone's trash, reverse or drive out, and then reverse in again to do the other side of the alley. So I think it's feasible, and it would seem like in Campbell we have one trash provider. So I can't speak for them, but I would imagine a trash truck can drive down this street in two directions or one, because it's only one single loaded. And I support the individual trash bins because these are all single homes and everyone's going to have a different amount of trash. And you wouldn't want someone coming with, giant TV boxes one week and then another week, food. So I think individuals, my inclination to, work with the applicant on that, as long as the trash partner can meet those needs. And then I appreciate the applicant meeting SARC's requests. Of course, there is that unknown, and I guess it'll always be unknown of if this would have supported attached homes, but it does seem to support detached, and that's the applicant's prerogative, I suppose. Oh, and the parking, sorry, I'll wrap up with the parking. It's unfortunate there's one missing stall, but I think given the enhanced density that's been brought to this site and the ADUs, as well as the exceptional length of time this has gone through, I'm supportive of a variance.
And my 2 cents is really the same as my commissioners have said. I think it was a good job. Thanks, working with the city. This was really a long process and came up with a good project. Missing just the one parking spot, I think, definitely a parking challenged street, but I know that took a lot of effort to get to the 26 spots, and the detached units definitely look nicer. And on the trash, it's a tough one. 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right? Either way. But I'm supportive of the project. Thank you.
So I guess it's the lesser of the two weevils, since it's rubbish. But I think Commissioner Rivlin had a good idea. I think whether it's a city or the developer should reach out to the trash company and request for them to do a pickup, because that would probably be the best solution. It's not ideal putting the bins out on the street. That is a very busy street. But also it's not great having a central place either. So I'd probably go for having individual bins and supportive of everything else in the project. I think that the motion as it's drafted is regarding the power lines, is for the buried power lines. The preferred solution, I think that's what we're going for.
Just a real quick comment by me. It's a nice design, and I'm supportive of it. And I guess there's a lot of history, obviously, I don't know about, and it looks like they've accomplished what need to do to get the 9 units in. Don't want to dwell on the trash thing, but I do have one last question about the trash. The trash bins looks like they're in the back. Is there a walkway along the back to where you can walk the trash to the curb from there, or do you walk it through the narrow openings between the buildings? Can somebody answer that?
Yeah, I can answer it. I mean, yeah, so if you look at the site plan, there's these little gates in between each of the units that do walk up between those centralized walkways that lead between the unit front doors of the units, with the exception, I guess, of the first unit, which faces the street. So yeah, they would use that same surface area, generally speaking, to get the trash bin.
They'd be walking them between the buildings.
Correct.
To the driveway.
Correct. and then from
Okay.
the driveway out.
Okay. And one other question is, you call this a private street, but is this going to be a Rincon address, or is it going to be a separate street name with a different address?
There just so happens to be enough addresses available. We have a great street naming policy. But effectively, if there are enough street numbers within the range on Rincon Avenue, we'll generally not create a private street just for the sake of it. And there happens to be just enough. I mean, if they had proposed a 10th unit, this would have been a private street. There wouldn't have been a way to managing the addressing.
Okay.
So it just happened to work out.
Great.
Okay. Sounds like there's some good support. Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. Bear with me a second. So I'll move to adopt the following resolutions. Adopt a resolution reference attachment 1, recommending that City Council approve a plan development permit. 2, adopt a resolution reference attachment 2, recommending that the City Council approve a tentative subdivision map. 3, adopt a resolution reference attachment 3, recommending the City Council approve a parking modification permit. 4, adopt a resolution reference attachment 4, recommending the city approve a tree removal permit. And 5, adopt a resolution reference attachment 5, recommending that the City Council approve a variance.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I didn't catch who that was, who seconded it.
That's me, Commissioner Bookbinder.
Oh, Buckbinder, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, Corinne, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Bookbinder,
Aye.
Colville,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ching,
Aye.
Mayor Ostrowski.
Aye.
0.
Great, that motion passes. Thank you very much. Congratulations. We look
And
forward
thank
to
you very
your
much
development.
all. Thank you.
Thank you
all.
very much from all of you, and Paul and Stephen especially. Thank you very much.
Great.
Finally, after 3 years almost, it's done.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Great. Have a good night. So moving on to item 4, this is a public hearing to consider the application of the Pruneyard Office Investors LLC for an amendment to the Pruneyard Master Use Permit for consideration of 1, a revised phasing plan to allow the approved office building and a partial expansion of the existing parking structure to be constructed as phase 3 ahead of the approved retail building as new phase 4. Further expansion of the existing parking structure in phase 4, and a 4-year extension of the permit deadline for new phase 4 from December 2022 to December 2026. 2, minor architectural changes, a nominal increase in building area, an elimination of the underground parking to the approved office building, and associated site parking layout changes. 3, a revised design for the parking structure expansion to incorporate enhanced architectural treatment and associated site layout, circulation changes around the traffic circle to increase pedestrian connectivity. 4, a change to the land use program to allow medical service clinics as a permitted use within the office parcel. And 5, revise the parking management plan to allow exclusive use of approximately 60 parking stalls for the new office building tenants during typical office hours. 6, require implementation of the valet parking program at the completion of phase 3, which is not required at the current phase, when certain occupancy thresholds are met. And 7, various non-material text clarifications and a tentative parcel map to allow creation of a 4th parcel created from the existing office parcel for property located at 1875, 1887, 1901, 1919, 1995, and 1999 South Bascom Avenue and 777 East Campbell Avenue in the C-2-0 General Commercial Overlay Combining Zoning District. And our planner for this item is Daniel Fama. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. Good evening. Let me quickly share my screen here. All right, so we have an application for an amendment to the Pruneyard Master Use Permit and a tentative parcel map. Of course, the Pruneyard is the 27-acre commercial center located at the northwest corner of East Campbell Avenue in South Bascom. This site is developed with multiple office, retail, and hotel uses located within the C-2-0 overlay combining zoning district. This is the city's only commercial overlay zone property. Let's discuss a little more in the staff report. The overlay zoning provides a greater degree of development standard flexibility, somewhat similar to the plan development zoning, but still maintains the allowable land uses of the underlying general commercial zoning. In October of 2016, the City Council approved the Pruneyard Master Use Permit. Master Use Permit is a special type of conditional use permit that was developed to help implement the proposed project proposed by the Ellis Partner Group at the time. As shown here, the Master Use Permit is a multi-aspect document that includes land use controls, development standards, design guidelines, operational standards, and administrative controls for the overall implementation of the document. It is also a living document, so as the city actually makes changes to it, those are recorded inside the document, and certain tables can be updated as tenants change and new approvals are issued. In terms of what was actually allowed, that 2016 approval allowed for construction of 5 new retail buildings and a 5-story, 100,000 square foot office building, as well as expansion of the existing parking structure shown here. As well as there were other multiple improvements throughout the site, enhanced landscaping and pedestrian connections. In terms of phasing, that original project had 4 phases that are outlined here. Phases 1A, 1B, and phase 2 were completed. That leaves the remaining phase 3, which you see are 3 retail buildings here, as well as the expansion of the parking garage. And then the last phase was phase 4, construction of that new 5-story office building. The proposal, the proposal is looking to effectively modify that phasing plan. There would be effectively a new phase 3, which would push construction of the office building ahead of the retail buildings. And so in tandem with construction of the office building, you would also now have a partial expansion of the garage expansion, which now would effectively be split into 2 phases. The next phase would be phase 4, which would be the remaining expansion of the garage, as well as construction of the other retail buildings. Because of the tremendous amount of economic uncertainty, however, the applicants have requested that the city defer further detailed review of what that final phase 4 would look like, including the parking stall count of phase 4 until the future. Because the new configuration would result in a partial construction of the expanded parking garage without the new building, we effectively now have an interim condition. As originally approved, the new expanded office building would be paired with a retail building, or in this case, a fitness building, that would be connected to it. The idea of this configuration was to physically bring the parking garage closer to the rest of the center and to provide a greater sense of connectivity for pedestrians to the parking garage so that they would want to use it. Because in this new condition, there would not be a building here, the applicants have looked at architectural improvements to the garage so that the garage does tie architecturally better with the rest, with the rest of the center. And to further increase the, further increase the connectivity with the center, The plans also show improvements to the traffic circle, better landscaping, seating, and walkways as shown here, as well as enhanced landscaping along the edge of the expanded garage. Additionally, to help create better vehicular connection from the Campisi entrance of the north, this existing turning island would be removed, and the current one-way drive-by would be converted to two-way traffic to allow a standard four-corner intersection. In terms of the office building, excuse me, a little difficulty breathing in a mask while doing a presentation. In terms of the office building, it's largely the same, but because the new office building would no longer have its own parking underground, that parking be replaced in the expanded parking garage. The previously designed rear of the building that had a vehicle ramp that would go down would be removed. And so the removal of that ramp does result in a small amount of additional square footage inside that building. But otherwise, the building would largely remain the same as last approved by the Planning Commission in 2017. The applicants are also looking to reserve parking for the new office building. Currently, this is the parking management plan for the whole prune yard. It's divided up into different zones to largely encourage longer term parking within the garage and shorter term parking on the surface lots. So this would be a material change that would effectively reserve parking for the tenants of a single office building. Some other minor revisions include allowance for medical services, clinics within the office parcel, which currently is not allowed. This really represents more of an oversight in the original approval, as there is no particular reason why medical clinics would not be permitted in the office parcel. The revised MEP.
Daniel, do you want to take like a 3-minute break? We can definitely do that and come back in 3 minutes so you can catch your breath and drink some water.
I think I'm almost done.
Okay, sounds good.
Just to get through it. Yeah, I was hoping that the lighter mask would be a little easier to do. Apparently not. The proposal did include a parking analysis that looked at whether or not that partial expansion of the garage was sufficient to meet the needs of the new office building. And that analysis, which was peer reviewed by the city's traffic consultant, found that the parking that would be created would largely be sufficient with the exception of the holiday season from Thanksgiving to Christmas, where depending on how the tenancy of the retail center and the office building is, there could be a small under amount of parking that could require a valet parking program to be implemented. And the revised MEP does provide language to that effect. And then lastly, excuse me, we have the request for a Dandith Parcel Map that would allow creation of a fourth parcel from the existing office parcel. So the colors here depict the current configuration, and then the applicants have outlined this fourth parcel that would be created around the office building. From staff's perspective, the 2016 approval really struck a balance by creating one parcel for the hotel, one parcel for the office, and one parcel for the retail center. Creating an additional parcel really disrupts that balance and opens the door to future parcelization of the rest of the center, which could complicate good management of the prune yard by introducing additional ownership interest into the mix, which can often be challenging to coordinate future development activity. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolutions per the desk item that was previously provided to you, recommending that the City Council approve an amendment to the prune yard master use permit, as well as recommending that the City Council deny the requested tentative parcel map. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, do we have some long questions so that Daniel can catch his breath before we ask him to speak again?
Yeah.
I've got a question for Daniel, or maybe for Dean. So I'll try and speak slowly. Which is
good. Well done.
So the.
But this is the only time I'm allowing that, by the way.
Okay, thank you very much. So the additional parcel for the office parcel, I understand from a conversation with Mr. Rubinson, was to enable financing of the office development, because the financiers didn't want to have some built offices and office under development. Could it be, and I guess this is probably for the applicant, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Daniel. Can you do a temporary parcel to enable the building, and then it goes back to being in the existing format with an office parcel?
The city attorney may want to opine in here, but there really is no mechanism to compel merging of the parcel after it's been created in this scenario, because the whole idea of allowing a parcel to be created is to allow it to be sold and owned independently. And that would happen, and then trying to put that back together is really not an option. But maybe Bill wants to opine.
Well, that's a complicated question to answer at first blush at the meeting. Possibly with a development agreement of some kind, you might be able to work out something like that, but it's would be very unusual.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, just as a follow-up there, is it possible to require, for example, that the ownership of the two parcels remain together? That seems like that would address the concerns.
No, the simple answer to that is no. The whole reason for parcelization is to allow separate ownerships. That is the basic premise behind separating parcels.
Okay, thank you for the very straightforward answer.
Does the I forget the name of it, but the association that manages the site, does that not reference in the master use plan that is the governing board over all the sites, such that the city's concerned, planner Fama, that the operation of the site will always be part of the HOA or the commercial strata's requirement to maintain the entirety of the site?
Yes, I mean, comparable to a residential community, the condos or townhomes. The Pruneyard does have a center association, which does function as effectively a type of HOA that speaks for the property owners. And one of the desk items that was provided to you earlier was a letter on behalf of the center association.
Yes, and what I was asking is, how does the your recommendation references that there's an idea that they would break apart because of different parcels, but isn't it such that the master use plan or the overall document is binding, that the HOA or the commercial organization would continue to govern that kind of overall view?
Well, they certainly do continue to govern, but the more ownership interests you introduce, the more votes within that organization. And obviously an organization of 3 is easier to manage than an organization of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10. And it comes down to at what point does the city determine that there are too many owners? And from staff's perspective, the 2016 approval was really the ideal case. 3 owners representing 1 asset class each. That was the balance.
And the zoning, does it allow for parcelization beyond 4, or is that or 3 even? What's the max?
There really is no maximum. I mean, they can certainly apply in the future for additional subdivision requests to further divide portions of the property for the same reason, to finance future development.
So just for clarity, the zoning allows for them, it could be broken into 100 parcels. That's unlikely, but that is feasible under the zoning.
Correct.
Thank you.
I had a question, Daniel, about the parking. So basically what's being proposed is to eliminate the underground parking for the office building, and then replace it with the parking garage that's going to be located adjacent to the existing parking garage and next to the retail that will be in the future phase. How does the number of parking stalls compare? Is it the same, or are we losing parking or gaining parking?
Well, currently there are 2,090 parking stalls. And then that would be reduced by construction of the office building, which removes parking stalls that currently exist. And then the parking garage, when it's expanded, there are also surface stalls there that would be removed. But of course, then with the new garage expansion, you would have a new amount of parking stalls, and that would take you to 2,164. And so that's the number that was reviewed by the applicant's parking study. And that gets us, again, through phase 3, where generally that parking number is sufficient. Where it gets a little more complicated is the future of what the additional retail buildings may require, and we really don't know. I mean, parking demand is certainly a fluid thing, particularly right now with changes in technology, and the applicants may not even necessarily build all the remaining buildings, which is why, as conditioned, in the future, they would need to come back with more fleshed out drawings for review by the Planning Commission. And at that point, we would also look at the parking again to make sure that the parking they're providing is going to be adequate for the final build out of the project.
Great, thank you.
So I had
let me know if I should. Go ahead.
Maybe a quick one. Do we know how many bike racks there are in the centre?
I do not have that number now. I'm sorry.
I have a question about the garage. I'm looking on it's page 182 of the entire document, the entire agenda, and there's an existing layout and a proposed layout phase 3 for it. And maybe I misunderstood Mr. Rubinson today or yesterday. It looks like the revised phase 3 for the parking garages to add an extension to the parking garage. I thought he had said that they were going to add a couple of they were to build up on the existing parking garage as the phase 3, rather than putting in that second parking or extension to the parking garage. Can you clarify that?
So this proposal is for the garage to be expanded outwards. And so that's what you see in one of the slides I had, where you effectively have an addition to the garage horizontally.
All right. And then, you know how many levels that is?
Let's see, I believe that is 3 levels of parking.
Okay, and we presently have is it a 3 or 4 level garage?
It is currently a 3 level, I believe.
All right, so it's an extension. Okay, I may have misunderstood him. On the other question about the fourth parcel for the new office building, I don't want to speak for Mr. Rubinson, but his explanation to me was that this was had to do with a construction loan financial issue in terms of it being difficult to include it with, I guess, whatever 50-year-old office buildings with a new office building, and that they end up getting the loan becomes a higher interest loan. And I guess my question would be, is there, not that I don't trust Mr. Rubinson, but that we get an independent confirmation on that kind of issue?
Well, to some degree, I mean, it's not particularly material to the city's considerations. I mean, financial considerations are personal to every applicant. And because of that, our focus really needs to be on the city's standards, codes, and policies. And none of that really speaks to making sure that the applicant can get a loan at a lower rate.
Okay.
Are there other
I'd like
questions?
I'd like to ask to clarify one thing. Oh, first, that's discussion. So I'm hearing a lot of concern about the request to split off a fourth parcel, and I'm gonna be honest about this. I talked to the applicant about it. I don't exactly fully understand the reasoning behind it. Can staff tell me if I have this right? Is the idea that if you try to develop part of a property or part of a parcel, you risk unrelated parts of that parcel because the parcel acts as some kind of collateral? So it's really hard to develop only part of it unless it's split off. Is that the idea here?
I think that's what you're hearing from the applicant. I mean, that anyone can request to subdivide a property, and they're all going to have their own reasons. But again, from staff's perspective, there was a certain harmony that was achieved, and that's something that in the past, city has been very, very resistant even allowing any division of the prune yard. There have been multiple attempts in the past, and this is the only one that really ever stuck. And there was a reason for that. It was the balance of the 3 parcels and the 3 asset classes.
So in the past, when different parts of the prune yard have been developed, have there been instances where only the parcel is mostly developed and some new building is put in there and they've managed to do that without subdividing it? Has that happened?
Well, correct. All the development of the prune yard all the way through 2016 was done under a single parcel. Up until that point in time, it was just one big piece of land. So the whole thing had been developed under multiple, I mean, over the period of, I guess, over 50 plus years as one piece of land.
Okay, so it's like, I am obviously not a developer, so I'm trying to get a feel for it. And if as staff you don't have, the expertise on this, then that's okay. But I'm trying to get a feel for, like, on the scale of this is an obvious request and you can't do development without it, to this would make things easier for them, but it's not required to develop the prune yard. I'm trying to get a sense of what this ask is.
Well, that's a question of financial feasibility, which is outside of the scope of staff's review.
Okay, and I suppose our city attorney wouldn't really be an expert on that either. Okay, well,
correct.
I guess we'll...
I think, Adam, what it comes down to is that there's lenders that are lending to build commercial buildings. And so for those lenders to have, to be lending to build a commercial building when there are other types of uses that they're not as familiar with, it's a higher liability and risk. If there were to be some kind of default, then they would have to sell or, deal with that type of property that they're not as familiar with. And therefore, that's why they require higher interest rates to deal with that level of risk and liability.
Okay, so this is like, I'm just trying to get a sense of why now, like what's different. And you're saying that, I suppose the applicant will also give us notes on this, but the lending environment is different. And so it makes it a lot more feasible to finance if it's on a separate parcel, is what they're
yeah,
saying.
and I'm sure they'll comment on that, but there are probably new types of lenders now with specialties that have lower rates because of that versus 50 years ago. I'm sure that was different. But yeah, we'll definitely have the applicants speak to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions for staff before we open the public hearing? Okay, great. Well, thank you. And I'll open the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, very much.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much for your time today or tonight, and for your time over the last couple of weeks. And I also want to thank Paul and Daniel for their part over the last 5-6 years since we began this journey together in 2015. And want to especially thank Paul as he heads off to retirement. This will probably be our last round around the track together. So I want to really thank him for his help in creating the master use permit and being a partner on everything we've done at the Prune Yard. I'm joined today by a number of folks on our team. In the interest of time, I'm not going to have them speak unless there are questions specific, but we've got our architects from Korth and Siri Hagee, our land use attorney, Lee Prince, and a number of members of the Ellis Partners team, including Jim Ellis and Melinda Ellis-Evers. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen. Daniel did a tremendous job coming through everything, so I'm not going to repeat at 9:30 most of the things that he went through, and I'll focus in on the other distinguishing pieces of my presentation here.
Thanks, Dean. And I think we had agreed to 10 minutes for your presentation.
Yep, I will do my best to get through it. Thankfully, Daniel did such a great and skip through a lot of it. So, all right. So, as you know, the office building was approved a few years ago. We submitted this application, I think it was like November 2019. So we've been working with Paul and Daniel for about almost a year and a half now to make this change. We have a tenant that pre-COVID wanted to take the top 3 floors here. They've indicated their interest will potentially come back later this year. So we want to try to get through this process and do everything we can tonight to make this project as feasible as possible. There are a lot of impediments. Rents have gone down, construction costs have not gone down. And all of the things we're trying to do here tonight, and I understand project feasibility is not necessarily a planning issue, but if we all want this building to be built for the sake of Campbell and for the jobs and for the foot traffic that the Prune Yard desperately needs, the reality is financial. So many of these things that we have to factor in tonight sort of tie into that. But in the end, we all hope to create this wonderful building for the community and for finance of the city and for our other partners at Prune Yard. So I won't go into the phasing because Daniel covered all of those elements. I will only highlight that when we began the Prune Yard project, we came to the city showing phase 1A and phase 1B. And we indicated that the reason we split that was because unless we were able to split the parcel of 27 acres into 3 parcels, which would enable our financing of the project, we would not be able to do project phase 1B, which is the plaza in the middle here. So we said, if you guys can trust us, if you can understand that there will be an association that will govern all of the common areas here, and understand that 3 parcels on a 27 acre site is not unusual in any way, we can give you a wonderful plaza. And the city, the staff was hesitant at the time, just as they are now. And the Planning Commission in 2016 and the council in 2016 basically held our hand and said, all right, let's do this. We trust you. We'll give you the 3 parcels. So phase 1B was completed. It's now a wonderful space for the community. Phase 3 and phase 4 are ahead of us, and we're trying to have essentially the next chapter of that conversation of, this is complicated. Financing $50 million of projects is really hard work. And the numbers right now with COVID are even harder. So we're doing everything we can here to make it all work. So I'll move forward here in terms of the design. I think Daniel covered this well. If there are any questions you have on that, please let me know and we can have our architects join. But we believe that the design we have here for the garage is very consistent with the other architecture on the site. And we think that whether we build phase 4 or not, this will be a great addition and a great conclusion to the expansion and redevelopment. The plaza, the roundabout right now, which is not heavily used, we think will be a great bridge between the retail and the garage. And we believe it will be even more utilized with seating areas and additional landscaping, and make the parking garage even more used than the existing garage is. So I don't think there were any questions during my conversations about dedicated stalls. So I'll jump over to the parcel piece just to finish up with that. As Daniel mentioned, there are 3 parcels now. The association, which is fully supportive of our request for another parcel here, because they recognize and understand that it's critical to the development of the 4th parcel. The Pruneyard Association covers everything outside of the buildings: parking management, landscaping, maintenance, security, public events, marketing. And with the addition of a 4th parcel, none of that would change. The same people, the same rules, the same aspects of it. Building this office building is a significant financial endeavor. The parcel is very complicated to finance, but we strongly believe that it will have no effect. It does not upset the balance of the Pruneyard. It would not change anything in any negative way. There would, yes, potentially be a 4th owner here, but Santana Row, for example, has 20 parcels. When you're out there, do you see 20 parcel owners bickering with each other? No. Santa Clara Square has 10 parcel owners, 10 parcels, and Westfield Valley Fair has 18. So this is not unusual. It is not an issue, and we believe that the events, the maintenance, the harmony between the owners of the parcels will continue. The association voted unanimously on recommending this approval of our application in its entirety, and we believe that the trust that the council and the planning commission back in 2016 gave to us in allowing us to have the additional the 3 parcels allowed us to take this plaza from 2015 to the area that you all enjoy today, and we are very confident that this will be a good decision. The 4th parcel would be compliant with zoning. There is no intent at this point by any of the parcel owners to add even a 5th parcel or a 6th or a 7th. In fact, the Parcel Map Act limits you to 4 parcels before you have to go to a full-blown subdivision. So this 4th parcel requires no variances or exceptions. It can be done within a parcel map, and we believe it's consistent with the general plan and zoning code, and it's critical to the feasibility of this office development, which will foster jobs and increase the foot traffic that is so needed at the Pruneyard. We look forward to continuing our development there. We're very proud of what we've done and feel truly a part of the Campbell community, and appreciate your time and happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rubinson. It has come a long way. It's nice to see be reminded of how things looked and what they are today. I was curious, currently Alice Partners owns all of the parcels at the Pruneyard, correct?
No, sorry, I'm just trying to get back to the gallery view here. The property was split in 2018. I think in 2019, we sold off the hotel to a hotel operator, which was not really our specialty. And in 2019 as well, we sold the retail parcel to a large retail owner that has 1,400 shopping centers around the country. We are continuing to be partners with them. We handle all the leasing and the construction management there. The office parcel was sold as well, and we are minority owners within the parcel, and we would be the ones continuing on with the development of this office building as a part of being the owners of the office parcel and any sub parcels therein.
Thank you for that clarification. So then in terms of the association that's managing the parcels amongst the 3 different owners, are who is on the association in terms of representation from the owners?
There's an individual, I don't have all the details, but there's an individual from the hotel parcel. There are individuals from the retail parcel. We represent the office parcel. And then there are people that have been hired to basically run the Prune Yard Association, who handle all of those important common area duties.
And so how does the voting, like the decision making, actually work then?
There's a board of directors and a secretary, and each parcel has a certain amount of voting shares or voting rights. And there are regular board meetings to cover all kinds of discussion items, budgeting, events, hiring, and so forth. And at each of those meetings, we had one a couple of weeks ago where I presented this deck and they voted unanimously to support this application.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. So it looks like there are a number of owners and that the management is running smoothly.
Correct. And I've been told the retail parcel has 4 votes, the office has 2, and the hotel has 1.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I had a question. If approved, when would construction begin and end? When would the building be complete?
We are about a third of the way through completion of drawings. We have a contractor ready to go. And about a year ago, we had maybe a year and a month ago, we had a lease that was almost ready to get signed. And that basically, would have had us on the road. We submitted this application about 3-4 months before COVID, so we were waiting for this to go through. So I'll just say, Adam, COVID aside, we had anticipated to start construction last September, and it would take about 18 months to build the office building and about a year to build the garage, and we would have started them both at the same time. So it would be, let's just say, if we're optimistic that by November this year, COVID clears and we can get a lease done and we are successful tonight, we would hope that we could get that lease signed. And then, let's say a year and a half after November, we could complete the project.
Thank you.
I just one question. I'm just trying to clear up. So, Mr. Rubens, if we don't create the 4th parcel, are you saying that office building would not be built, or would only be built if you got a pre-lease tenant, or?
Well, it would most likely be built only with a pre-lease tenant anyway, because it's very, very hard to get a financial commitment from a lender unless you got over 50% leasing. At the current construction costs and rental rates, I would say, Commissioner Craig, be very, very unlikely that we could get a competitive enough loan if the parcel was not split off. And that's the reason why we're making this request, because it's not feasible at this point. And unless rents happen to skyrocket while construction costs go down, it will probably remain infeasible.
Thank you.
Mr. Rubinson, could you just expand a little bit on the financial implications in terms of, what we talked about in terms of the difference in getting a loan, construction loan?
For sure.
Regarding the parcel.
So again, I am not the financial specialist, but I would say that there are as I sort of explained to several of you, a number of different types of lenders. There are lenders who give you a mortgage for your house. There are different lenders who would lend you money if you were buying an existing 20-story office building. And then there's a whole third kind of lenders that are construction lenders, and they are construction lending specialists. They understand what happens if the economy crashes and you're only halfway done with your project. They understand that they'll have to finish the project and lease it and sell it. Lenders who lend you on your house understand that if you lose your job, they may have to take the house back and they may have to sell it. And all of these lenders specialize in different types of loans. Given that the existing parcel includes 3, let's say 50-year-old office buildings with 60+ tenants, there are very few, if not none, construction lenders that would want to be stuck with a half-built construction project and 60 tenants in 50-year-old buildings. So they would not be competitive with their lending rates if they would even respond to our requests for a loan at all. And that's why it's most efficient financially, procedurally, to go to a construction lender, and they want collateral that is simple and would be limited to a construction project. And that's not to say that every single project is built that way, but the vast majority are. Everyone that I've ever built in my 30-year career has been built with a construction on a separate parcel, distinct from any other buildings.
Can I ask a sort of broader question? I think I brought this up at the SARC meeting. The general design of the Prune Yard is sort of a cluster of pedestrian-friendly buildings surrounded by sort of a moat of parking. The new office building is sort of on the other side of that moat. How will you safely connect the office building across the parking moat to the existing uses?
There are crosswalks like there are today between the existing office buildings. They're all the way on the Highway 17 side, and there are crosswalks that connect you over rock bottom, for example. The same kinds of crosswalks, would take you through a series of paths to get you to the retail. Obviously, it's very important for us to make that connection because that's where we want them to go for lunch and get a beer after work. So we have it's on the plans, and we feel like it can be very safe, ADA compliant, and convenient.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rubinson. We will go ahead and close the public hearing. And who would like to start us off?
I can start. Thoughts I had. The Prune Yard is one of the most intense land uses in the whole city. And looking at those aerial views, it's about half parking by surface area. I mean, 2,090 stalls. So I feel like anything we can do to use that space more efficiently is a win. I'm really glad that the applicant has figured out how to get rid of expensive underground parking and share parking between office and retail uses. I think that is a great idea. And especially seeing both that there are currently several different owners and that other Prune Yard style shopping centers around the region frequently have many more parcels in this. Like, I understand where staff is coming from on this. Their concern is specifically how this is designed and the concern about how difficult it will be to administer if it's split up into 100 little parcels. At the same time, I think that our concern, among other things, is trying to make sure that Campbell is developed well. I don't see why we shouldn't grant the parcel amendment. I recognize that strictly from staff's purview, it looks like it's not that great an idea, but it really does sound like it makes a big difference as to how feasible this is to develop. And I think 4 parcels with the office building is a lot better than 3 parcels without. And those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Adam.
I'll give my thoughts on it. First of all, I feel very closely connected to the prune yard. I've been here. I've been here for the most part in Campbell for 35 years. I remember the original design. I remember bringing my small children to when they actually had a plaza before, and I've seen the changes and the additions over time, and I was concerned about the latest redesign, and I'm very pleased with what they have done with the latest design with the Phase A and Phase B with the plaza. I don't have a problem with the location of the new building. It's on a corner, and it's, the location is fine, and I'm sure the access, because it's right on Campbell Avenue, and there'll be a couple different ways to walk over to the retail area. So I'm comfortable with that. Obviously, we need the additional garage parking. I don't have any problems with anything else, and I kind of echo Adam's, Commissioner Buckbinder's position on the 4th parcel. We're not talking. I mean, we are talking about a 4th parcel, and that any future parcels we would need to get, I would assume, would need to go the approval process again. I'm not a financial or a development guy. The explanation in terms of the financing issues and construction loan sounds valid to me, and I don't really see an issue with adding a 4th parcel. I mean, especially since we're talking without the 4th parcel, there's a tie to the old 3 towers that are another, from another period of time. So it makes sense to me as a layman. I would not oppose it. And the fact that they have a working, obviously well-working association going that makes Prune Yard work well, which is a very, very important commercial district for us. So there are no other areas of issue that I have concerns about in terms of the readjustment to the Phase 3, and I would support a 4th parcel.
Thank you.
Yeah, just so my comments, I support Commissioners Zisser and Bookbinders say. I think I can see the staff's point. However, I think planning considerations always have inherent ability to finance them and have a return there. And it sounds like a more immediate problem compared to a potential future problem in having a further parcel. So I'd be in support. I don't really have any issues with anything else. It looks quite a good development under the circumstances here. I know the original plan would probably be preferable, but things have changed. I'd be in support of this additional parcel.
Great.
I got to say that, when I was read this report, and it was a great report, and there's so much information, and the prune yard is so crucial for us. And I still do agree with the staff's, and I'm just talking about the parcel. I think that's the only issue. I think the changes to the master plan are fine. And I'm thinking, really in terms of a planning, there's nothing really good for the city of Campbell to create this 4th parcel. There are you can see the possible problems that would arise. So that makes perfect sense. from a planning standpoint and from a perfect world standpoint. When you get into the realities of financing, and as my fellow commissioners have said, I'm kind of I'm along the same lines. You know, this is a fourth parcel. We already have the three. Sure, there could be a fifth or sixth somewhere down the road. They'd have to make a pretty good argument, I think, for it. I guess, you know, so, and, you know, as Daniel answered the questions there, the planning's not looking at the financial considerations. And I know a developer can tell us all kinds of stuff about financial considerations, but this certainly rings true. I think it is a big deal to create the fourth. I think it is, like I said, absent everything else. It's not good for the city of Campbell overall, but given the financial considerations, we'd like to have that built. We'd like to have a nice project there. I think in this case, I would be tempted to go along with the fourth parcel. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
I've experienced, oh, shall I go, or Commissioner Colville, did you want to go?
Go ahead, Commissioner Rivlin.
I just wanted to share, everyone has a little walk down memory lane with the prune yard here. I wanted to make sure I get mine in there. Prior to moving to actual Campbell boundaries, the prune yard was the first place in Campbell I visited. So, it's kind of neat to see the transformation, and I can only say it's gotten better. And I too take my daughters there, and we love the blue gorillas. I know that has bearing on the meeting, but what it does show is that the space has only gotten better, and that the HOA is functional. I shouldn't use that term, but the association that manages the site is functional, and a fourth partner obviously will, steer different directions based on their needs. But I think there's enough density of votes throughout the, whole parcel that it's not going to be lopsided or, too heavy on one piece of operation or land use. So I think it makes perfect sense if Campbell wants to have this new office space and potential tenant. Hopefully it all works out. COVID seems to be going away, so I can only hope that financing comes, and if the parcel also helps assist that, it makes complete sense to me. Architecturally, I don't think there were too many changes. Of course, the garage now no longer has its retail components, but I feel like it fits the architecture and kind of activates the space. I know garages don't activate space, but the style and architectural detail will connect better to the overall site. And as long as the circulation is thought through and adjusted once things are operational, I think it's the right pick for this kind of new era for us in Campbell. So I'm supportive of both resolutions recommending to the City Council.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Colville?
Yeah, I'll touch on this briefly. Everybody said most of what there is to be said, and I think if there was a time, we speak a lot as commissioners regarding what can we do to help during COVID. I would take a look back at the decision like this and say this is something we can actively say we did. Had a hands-on actual approach to handling this and helping get the green light for this. And this is something where you look at what's happening here. You have a developer who's willing to put themselves on the line, and you also have the potential for lenders who would put millions on the line as well too. And that's out of our purview, of course, but that's the truth of the matter. You have a lot of people who make big decisions and they're willing to put their necks out there for our city and for the development. And of course, nobody would do anything. You wouldn't wake up if you didn't find a benefit to waking up. And so I would hate to look at anything like anything they were doing to be potentially nefarious regarding the fourth parcel. I think this is truly a situation where they're coming to us for help, and there's a reason they're coming to us. And I think it's going to be a decision for us to make where hopefully we can help make the right call for Campbell. I will be in support of adopting a resolution that will recommend this and not deny this tentative parcel map. We do have two resolutions to adopt. The second would be denying the tentative parcel map. I will be in support of the opposite. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Colville. Yeah, just to add, I agree with my fellow commissioners here. I also support the subdivision creating the possibility of raising the funding to build the office building. And I think it's very important with COVID that we help and support the businesses in Campbell and the retailers that are struggling in the prune yard, and all of the economic issues that we are all very well aware of. And then finally, also echoing Commissioner Rivlin, I also take my family to the public art there with the blue gorillas. It's a great place to keep your kids contained, that those gorillas are like magnets for them. You know that they're not going to run too far in any other direction, and you can relax outside with friends. So, you know, very, very well done. I think it's probably turned out even better than you had possibly imagined, which I think speaks very well to the designers and everybody that worked on the project in the previous phases. And so I look forward to what you have put here together for the next phase, and support all the modifications. And, you know, any other public art such as that is obviously very welcome. And we invite you to build more as well. So I think everybody's made their statements. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll,
Just
before you
go ahead. Yeah.
I had a question to run by Daniel or perhaps Director Kamoyan. We only have a resolution drafted for denial of the tentative map. And while I think it is possible to draft changes to that on the fly for approval, the question I have, however, is would we want to attach conditions, and are we prepared to do that tonight?
So we actually do have the alternative resolution in the packet, and there was a correction. So the desk item that was provided earlier does include two resolutions, one for denial, one for approval, and that does have conditions.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I'll make a motion then, or a couple motions. Well, one motion. I'll move that the Planning Commission resolve to recommend that the Planning Commission approve resolution reference attachment 1, recommending that the City Council approve an amendment to the prune yard master use permit, and that the Planning Commission resolve reference attachment 8, recommending that the City Council approve. Let me make sure I get it right. Approve a tentative parcel map to allow creation of a fourth parcel created from the existing office parcel of the Prune Yard Shopping Center and offices on property located at 1901 South Bascom Avenue and 777 East Campbell Avenue.
And if I could ask if that does include the reference to the revised resolution in the desk item, as well as the alternative MEP text that goes along with it.
Yeah, with those changes as per that item.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Zisser.
Ready for
Corinne, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioners Bookbinder,
Aye.
Colville,
Aye.
Cray,
Aye.
Rivlin,
Yes.
Zisser,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ching,
Aye.
Mayor Ostrowski.
Aye.
0.
Great. That item passes. Congratulations. Looking forward to, I guess, a year and a half from now.
Thank you all. We really appreciate it. I assume I'm allowed to speak for just a moment. Thank you for your help and your comments, and glad you love the blue gorillas. So we do as well. So thank you. Stay healthy, and we'll hopefully be as successful as City Council next month. So
Great. Thank you. All right. That item will go to the City Council. And with that, do we have a director's report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the report right now, and unless you think there's something you want me to expand on, there's that would conclude my report.
Looks good.
There's something I wanted to bring up if now's a good time. Some places like I was speaking to one of the members of planning commission up in San Bruno, and they have an item on their calendar called items for members and subcommittee reports, where members can bring items in for discussion, like an article or the like. On nights, obviously a night like tonight would not be a particularly good night for that, but when we are not swamped, is this something we can do? And who decides that?
Well, I mean, the planning commission, you aren't authorized to have subcommittees. The city council has subcommittees, but at the end of any agenda, you have that opportunity. It doesn't have to be a specific title on the agenda, that you can raise an item that you want to have agendized later. Otherwise, unless it's specifically placed on the agenda, you really can't bring up an issue and begin a dialogue on it. So it would have to be on the agenda.
So if, for example, there's a research paper about parking that I found that I think would be of interest to the commission,
then at the end of the meeting, like now, you would ask the commission if that was something that you wanted to agendize, so then you can have a discussion.
Okay, can I do that?
And then we would put it on a future agenda.
I don't have the link with me right now or the title of the paper. Can I fill that in later?
That's fine.
I guess I would like to, if the rest of the commission is comfortable with this, there's a recent research paper about the effect of providing parking on the number of vehicle miles traveled that people living in places with a certain number of parking spaces will have. Sort of a feedback effect that should, I think, inform a lot of our questions about how much parking the city provides, especially since we'll be considering that later this year. I'd like to send the article to, I guess, Corinne, who will send it out to everybody so we can meet and discuss it. Would people be amenable to that?
Good.
I'd be in support, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. If I can send out the, Corinne, should I send you the article so you can send it to everyone?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can send it to me, please.
So
Okay,
is the Commissioner Bookbinder, is the idea that you want to have this placed on an agenda, or you just want us to distribute the article?
I'd like us to distribute the article and have perhaps a short discussion about it.
Okay, Madam Chair, do we have 4 ayes for that? I saw 3. There's 4.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
I was going to raise my hand if Alan didn't.
I'll support it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope it'll be worth everyone's while. I thought it was particularly interesting. I'll follow up with Corinne about that. Okay.
The beers are on you, Adam, if it's not.
What'd you say, Stuart?
The beers are on Adam if it's not interesting.
Yeah, that's better be good, Adam. Otherwise, I don't know. Next time you might not get 7 votes.
You can take us to the brewery in the Couloirs.
What could be
It
more?
is quantitative. It is like novel. Like we'll talk about it.
Is it concise?
How long is it? By the way, I just have one more comment about the Blue Gorillas. So since you got a couple others here who hear the kids play on the Blue Gorillas, I have 2 grandchildren in the area, and my son and daughter-in-law bring them to, even though they live in South San Jose, they bring them to the prune yard regularly on the weekends, and I meet them there, and they were we were there Sunday, and they were playing on the Blue Gorillas. I also recommend Books Inc. If you haven't been in Books Inc., there's a children's section in the back where kids can sit and read, and so they do that too. So
Very cool.
We'll
Thanks
see you
for
there.
that tip. Yeah. We might have to meet there and discuss this paper. Although, would that be I guess that wouldn't abide by the Brown Act, huh? No.
Actually, you can meet anywhere within the city limits.
Oh, the brewery then. We can meet in the brewery. That would make it a creative conversation.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Very productive planning commission meeting. Lots of great input, and nice to see such agreement on these very important items. Not that, agreement is the only thing we need to do. We always have great points of view and everything. So appreciate everybody's time reading a 360-page packet and studying it in detail and making sure that we come up with the best decisions for Campbell and represent our communities. So have a good night, everybody, and see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
I'm glad it's the antithesis of Vice Chair Ching's video he sent a few months ago. We don't have quite that kind of discussion.